So this morning, you probably have looked at the schedule, Nārāyaṇa, Rishi. And there's many interesting things to learn about Nārāyaṇa Rishi, many nice things I learned. Let's say this verse together because their name is mentioned right in the very beginning of Canto 1, Chapter 2. Nārayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Nārāyaṇa, unto Nārāyaṇa Rishi, the supremmost human being. Note, singular. Unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. So you see on the screen, refer to digital documents. So you all have received, because I did some checking this morning, if you're part of WhatsApp group, you received this little digital document that describes why Nārāyaṇa Rishi. Why are they mentioned in this invocation verse for the entire Srimad Bhagavatam? That they have a prominent role. What's that role? Why are they mentioned? So there's a little document that with some references from here and there. They, Nārayaṇa Rishi, they're forms of the Lord that are eternal. Eternal forms of the Lord may and sometimes do make their appearance, especially those that appear in this world, but they have their presence in the spiritual world, and they're eternal associates of the Supreme Lord, expansions of the Supreme Lord, and they have a function in this world, and that's giving transcendental knowledge and protecting living entities in this world from ignorance. That's a service they do or function that they perform. So you can read in the document some further detail. Another comment is, there's mention here of the goddess of learning, Saraswati. And then there's two goddess of learnings, Saraswati. One is the wife of Lord Brahma, and the other is in the spiritual world, the Swarup Shakti of the Supreme Lord. One of the aspects of Swarup Shakti of the Supreme Lord is Saraswati, the goddess of learning. So, learning some of these details, it's not just an intellectual exercise. I will be sharing some points today that are, oh, I never heard that before, kind of things. And it's not just, you advance in Krishna consciousness by putting information in your information basket, and when you got a big, full information basket, you're an advanced devotee. It's not the criterion. Hearing transcendental topics requires purity and contemplation and prayer, and the transcendental teachings may become revealed. They may not become revealed. And then what do you do when they don't become revealed? You don't lose faith because they weren't revealed. But with faith in the authority of the Supreme Person and those representing him, you accept in principle and continue to contemplate and ponder. I'll give a nice example. I mean, an example that I really like. Many of you know Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was hearing regularly from Krishnadas Kaviraj. And he, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, had the utmost regard from Krishnadas Kaviraj. And he, in addition to hearing, he read Chaitanya Charitamrita. And there was a passage from within Chaitanya Charitamrita that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur couldn't understand. I mean, we'll be discussing some things today that most likely most of us in the room, myself included, don't understand. Now, what do you do with stuff that you don't understand? Well, what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur did is he prayed and he puzzled and he researched and he read, and the reference was an explanation given by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami that the number of syllables in Gayatri Mantra was included a half a syllable. And he never heard that before. What's a half a syllable? Syllables, yes. Half a syllable, what's that? And he had such faith and such inquisitiveness that he couldn't put the inquisitiveness, by speculation, he couldn't figure it out. But he didn't, so we shouldn't try by speculation. That's not recommended. He, being Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he was praying, and he was at that time residing by the side of Radhakund, and he couldn't understand, and he got to the point of intensity that he concluded, what's the use of my life? Krishnadas Kaviraj is writing things that I can't understand. What's my relationship with him? What's the discipleship of him? What's my faith in him? I can't understand. And he was contemplating fasting until the end of his life. So he sat by the side of Radhakund and was chanting the holy name, because purity makes it possible to understand things, at least an eligibility to understand things that you can't understand otherwise by purity, and then it may be revealed. So that's what happened. He's by the side of Radhakund and chanting and feeling, what's the use of my life? And while chanting, even with Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, because it was all night chanting, he fell asleep. So it's okay if you fall asleep, if you're just following Vishwanath anyways. And in his dream, Radharani appeared. Maybe many of you know the story. So Radharani appeared and said, Vishwanath, don't become desperate like this. You're right. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was not wrong. And in the morning, you go to the library and such book, and the reference that Vishwanath, that Krishnadas Kaviraj was making is from scripture. And with a certain rule, this, that, then it's considered a half a syllable. And he woke up. Sure enough, he went to the library in the morning, and there was the answer, and he didn't give up his life. But there was intensity, not ordinary, superlative intensity, inquisitiveness, Brahma Jigyasa. So, read that document and some other things that are going to be discussed here, and if you don't understand, here's something that Prabhupada said. This is in relation to Nectar Devotion. It was like the summer of 1970. Nectar Devotion was now available. And so we, by his instruction, we had a third class, morning Bhagavatam, evening Bhagavad Gita, and midday after lunch. Boy, that was tough, after lunch, having nectar devotion reading. But his instruction was, if you don't understand, read it again. And if you don't understand after reading again, you read it again, and keep reading it again and again until you eventually may understand. Purity makes it possible, not just the reading part, but the purification part makes it possible. But sometimes some things become revealed. Sometimes those things are not revealed. Even if you're a prema bhakta, some things may not be revealed. So you're in good company if things are not clear to you. There's lots of... Hanuman was unable to find Sita, and he the whole long explanation of Sundarakanda. We just discussed it at length. And he was desperate. He wasn't contemplating suicide, but what to do, this and that and this and that and the other. So then he offered prayers to Sita, and she revealed herself. And a little light went on. Maybe over there. I didn't look over there yet, and so went over there, and there she was. So be patient. Be perseverant. Utsaha nischaya, what Rupa Goswami writes is right. And if you don't understand, don't give up. Don't throw your hands in the air and consider yourself a Dumbo. It be in a relationship with the source of transcendental knowledge, such that the source of transcendental knowledge may show their mercy and reveal something that otherwise you don't understand. I'm dwelling on this because I'm anticipating some devotees in the audience at least asking, stump the Swami questions. You know what that means. And it's not can be understood by speculation. It's not can be understood. Even if it's explained, it's not can be understood in some cases. That's okay. Inquisitive is good. And even if you don't get the answer, stay inquisitive. So this is, that's a nice way to start. Nārāyaṇa Rishi. Question. Why in the singular? Sometimes, in translations of things, it's plural. It's two. Nara, Nārāyaṇa. Two. So they, and here it's not they. The supermost human being, singular. So which is it? Singular or plural? Flip a coin, right? It's two forms. It's not the same, but it's something similar to Radha Krishna having one form, as in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But that's clear, he's one form. Different features of that one entity that's in two forms, Radha Krishna, becomes one form. This is different, it's not the same, but singular is, from what I have read, is more precise. But this is an English translation anyway. But in the Sanskrit, it's singular. So Nara, Narayan, we're going to be hearing. Narayan is one entity, is a form of the personality of Godhead in two forms. And he resides in Badrinath. So here's the contents that we're going to be discussing. There's 7 of them, and here's 4 on the screen. Appearance and identity of. Second, prayers offered to Narayan by demigods and Cupid. There's an event that took place. We'll hear about it. And then their prayers. And the prayers are very nice. It reveals something further about Nārāyaṇa through their prayers. Then there's a discussion between Nārāyaṇa Rishi and Narada Muni. That's revealing also at Badrikashram. Then 4 at the bottom, glories of Bharat Varsha. And the predominating deity, their lordship's Nārāyaṇa Rishi. Now this is the whole of Bharat Varsha, it's not just Badrinath. Always worshipped reverentially by Devarshi Narada. And the building that you see on the right, that's the main temple, the celebrated landmark, very colorful. They keep it well painted and well maintained, and it's a very important place. Krishna and Arjuna visit, mahayized by Krishna to go to Badrikashram, and then Markandeya Rishi offering prayers. That's a long section. Very nice. Oops. There's a different angle of looking at that temple, and here's the river passing in front of that temple. So a little bit now, there's multiple sources, and Jiva Goswami and his son Darbas is a very nice, because he goes into details, and Mahabharata and Srimad Bhagavatam. So the genealogy of Nārāyaṇa Rishi is pictured here. Brahma is the firstborn living being, one of the direct sons of Brahma is Daksha. Daksha became married to the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, Prasuti. Prasuti, Akuti, and Devahuti. Prasuti was his wife, and one of the offspring was Murti, who Murti became the mother of Nārāyaṇa Rishi, and Dharma was the father. He was a king. And the source of this is up the upper left. That's Canto 4, Srimad Bhagavatam, the first chapter, because the lineage of descendants from Swayambhuva Manu is a big part of this earlier 3rd, 4th canto Bhagavatam. In Canto 1, Chapter 3, there's a list of avatars, partial list. The 4th incarnation, the Lord became Nara and Nārāyaṇa, twin sons, so now it's plural, of the wife of King Dharma. Thus he, that's singular, undertook severe and exemplary penance to control the senses. He did more than control the senses, but one of the examples that he set. And later in the 11th canto, Nārāyaṇa Rishi, this is like, who is he? Who is, singular, perfectly peaceful, and is the best of sages. Again, there's 2 figures, but it's singular. Was born as the son, singular, of Dharma and his wife Murti, the daughter of Daksha. Nārāyaṇa Rishi taught the devotional service of the Lord by which material work ceases, and he himself, singular, perfectly practiced this knowledge. He, singular, is living even today. His lotus feet served by the greatest of saintly persons. So this is an artist illustration on the left. That's Narada Muni, and he has great affection. We'll hear a whole section of Narada and Nārāyaṇa conversing. And the bigger picture, although it's the images are small, it's many sages were in their company as well. Now here's a reference from 7th Canto, chapter 11. Lord Nārāyaṇa, along with his partial manifestation Nara, sounds like plural, appeared in this world through the daughter of Daksha, Maharaj, known as Murti. He, singular, was begotten by Dharma Maharaj for the benefit of all living entities. Even now, he is still engaged in executing great austerities near the place known as Badrikashram. And specifically, we saw maps, if you remember, in the configuration of Bhumandala, and one of the mountain ranges was Gandhamadana. Remember? The parents of Nara and Nārāyaṇa, Dharma and Murti, stay at Keshava Prayag. His parents don't stay with their son. About 8 kilometers from Badrinath. This is the place where Dharma meditated for the purpose of getting Nārāyaṇa Rishi as his sons, plural. So it keeps moving back between singular and plural. Canto 4, chapter 53. On the occasion of the appearance of Nārāyaṇa, the entire world was joyful. Everyone's mind became tranquil. And thus, in all directions, the air, the rivers, and the mountains became pleasant. So their spiritual presence had an impact on the material elements and the minds of people who were in the material world experiencing the material world. Now, there's further discussion about all of this, where subsequent verses to this verse number 53, the heavenly planets, they did what heavenly beings do, singing and dancing and showering flowers from the sky, pacified sages who were chanting Vedic prayers, and lengthy discussion. And the demigods offered prayers, and nice, very select prayers. From Krama Sandarbha, some of you may not know the Sandarbhas of Jiva Goswami are celebrated as 6 in number, but in addition to the 6 Sandarbhas, there's another one called Krama Sandarbha. The 6 Sandarbhas are by topic, and Krama Sandarbha is verse by verse. That's the distinction. And Jiva Goswami wrote commentary on Bhagavatam and labeled it Sandarbhas because there's a certain style and rules for Sandarbhas. So in Krama Sandarbha, where, like Prabhupada, so every verse of the Bhagavatam is commented upon, most of the verses, he's making a comment on Canto 4, chapter number 1, verse 52. And notice in color codes, Sarva Guna and Utpatir are words that are highlighted. Murti was the source of the Lord, who is the ocean of all auspicious qualities. Sarva Guna Utpatir, Sri Nārāyaṇa, right from the Sanskrit. His commentary on that verse, Jiva Goswami's commentary. In her, there was the manifestation, utpatti, of Bhagavan, with all qualities, sarvaguna. She was called Murti because she was the cause of the manifestation of the form of eternity, knowledge, and bliss, called Bhagavan. So quite a qualified lady. And that's Kramasandarbha. Here's another reference, same Kramasandarbha. Since Vasudeva with a small v, Vasudeva and Murti with a small m, are the very form of Vishuddha Sattva, which reveal the form of the Lord, Murti is famous as the wife of Dharma in manifesting Nārāyaṇa. Persons like Anakundundubi, who's Anakundundubi? Vasudeva, right? The father of Krishna. Vasudeva. Another name, Anakundundubi. Persons like Anakundundubi should also be considered to be Vasudeva. In fact, he is. Or Vasudeva meaning the basis for the Lord's appearance. So Vasudeva appears as the son of Vasudeva. By consulting the text, this is 4.3.23, it is understood that those Shaktis who manifest as Shraddha, Pushti, etc., that when the Supreme Lord appeared, he appeared with all of his Shaktis. And there are some verses in the Bhagavatam that list the Shaktis that appeared with him, because Shaktiman has Shaktis. So when Krishna, Vasudeva, appeared to the son of Vasudeva, the son of son of Dharma and Murti also had Shaktis. They manifested their portions as Murti. In other words, Murti is not just, a nice queen. She is one of the Lord's direct Shaktis. That's the indication. Taking the form of the wife of a portion of the Lord's Shakti, Dharma. Jiva Goswami, Kramasandarbha. Further, same verse and same Jiva Goswami commentary. By seeing the result to be a manifestation of the Lord, it is concluded that she has the same Shuddha Sattva nature as Anakundundubi. So as the father, so the wife. So as in this case, she, Murti, has qualifications like the husband. And Dharma has those qualifications, as Anakundundubi has those qualifications. She shares in those qualifications. They're of the fully spiritual nature, in other words. And then he goes on to quote 9th Canto, chapter 24. Vasudeva, who provided the proper place for the appearance of Krishna, was also known as Anakundundubi, or the source of drums, sound of drums. When Vasudeva was born, there was a big tumultuous drum sounds all over the place. So that he got this nickname, Anakundundubi, Vasudeva. And one more reference from the same Bhagavatam verse. He here is quoting, Jiva Goswami is quoting this verse from Canto 1, Chapter 3, that describes Nārāyaṇa, the fourth incarnation, appearing as in the wife of Dharma, became Nārāyaṇa. And performed severe austerities which give peace to the soul. Now, that's not Prabhupada's BBT translation. I believe it's Bhanuswami's translation. So here, in blue letters at the top, Dharma Kala. Dharma Kala here means the Shakti of Dharma. So the word Kala has different meanings depending on context, and here's Jiva Goswami pointing us in the direction of a certain meaning of Kala. And here it's Kala, it's a Shakti of Dharma. Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai. The Shuddha Sattva form called Vasudeva appeared in this woman who is Shakti, since the result was the appearance of the Lord named Nārāyaṇa in her. She is named Murti. So he is in different ways. It's one commentary on one verse, but her position should be understood. She's a Shakti of the personality of Godhead. And that's her qualification or her credential for becoming the mother of an incarnation. And she shares that same quality with her husband. She shares that same quality with Adukundundubi and the expansion of Adukundundubi, Devaki. So she's not, her special qualification is being described in Jiva Goswami's commentary. So that was Canto 4, Chapter 3. Here's Canto 4, Chapter 1. And the translation at the bottom. That Nārāyaṇa Rishi, who is a partial expansion of Krishna, has now appeared in the dynasties of Yadu and Kuru in the form of Krishna and Arjuna, respectively, to mitigate the burden of the world. Now this is 4th canto, this isn't 10th canto, but there's making reference to the appearance not just of Krishna as the son of Vasudeva, but Nārāyaṇa as the son of Dharma and Murti. So the relationship between Vasudeva and Devaki and Dharma and Murti is important, that earlier discussion. And Dharma and Murti, they're in this Chandra dynasty, or they're the Yadu and Kuru lineage. And in the forms of Krishna and Arjuna, respectively, they appeared, or Nārāyaṇa appeared, to mitigate the burden of the world. Newer devotees may be struggling to comprehend what's going on. Hang on, it gets a little more complicated. So over on the left, that's Krishna and Arjuna. Over on the right, that's Nārāyaṇa, and they're in one sense identical. Now, get ready for a boomerang. Yesterday evening, Radhakrishna sent me a nice quote from Srila Prabhupada's letter, 1968, December 1968, to one of his female disciples, Saradiya. Very nice devotee. And here's the answer to her third question. Arjun and Kunti Devi are not in Krishna Loka. They are eternally associated with Krishna, yes, only in the material world. Just like Krishna is always in the spiritual world, so similarly, he is always in the material world, and his pastimes are going on there also. So Krishna is in both places. In the material world, Krishna also has eternal associates, such as Arjuna and Kunti Devi. There is a difference between the body and soul of Arjuna and Kunti Devi, but although Arjuna is with Krishna in innumerable different material universes at one time, still there's only one spirit soul, who is Arjuna. Confused, right? The spirit soul expands into many different bodies, and thus you can understand that there are also incarnations of devotees as well as incarnations of Krishna. This is the power of the spirit soul, that it is unlimited. And then such conception cannot be understood while one is still in the conditioned state. Any conditioned souls here in the room? So if you're a conditioned soul in the room or anywhere, then you're not going to understand this. And if you have any questions, you can ask Radha Krishna. Because I just saw this yesterday, and it's a concept that I'm not familiar with, and I'm sure, by Krishna's mercy and inquisitiveness, some doors were open and other references, but right now I'm not going to field any questions about what's on the slide here. Here is again Jiva Goswami referencing Krishna Sandarbha. The following statement from scripture shows that Nara entered Arjuna. So here's the reference. Arjune tu Nara Vesha Krishno Nārāyaṇa Svayam. Meaning, Nara was absorbed into Arjuna. And Nārāyaṇa is directly Krishna. One is absorbed in, and the other is directly. Krishna is shown to be identified with Nārāyaṇa in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14-14. And Nārāyaṇa is the same as Krishna, which is described in the next slide, for the whole verse of 10:14-14. This is one meaning of the statement from Scripture. However, there's another meaning. So here's 10:14-14, in case you'd like to see translation. Oh, what's chapter 14 from Canto 10? Brahma's prayers, right? So Brahma, great authority, praying to Krishna, is saying, "O Lord, of whom Mahavishnu is your expansion, Nārāyaṇa, Mahavishnu, the source of the other Purushas, is not you. Nor is the third Purusha dwelling within all beings, nor the second Purusha, the witness of all planets. Mahavishnu, called Nārāyaṇa, because he is the shelter of the Karana ocean, which gives rise to material creation, is simply your expansion. That expansion of yours is real, not illusory. So this is one of the explanations. Then Jiva Goswami is writing. There's an additional one. The additional one can be understood through Vishnu Dharma, which translation reads, he who knows you knows me. He who follows you follows me. I know you to be non-different from me, O son of Pandu. This is his Jiva Goswami's scriptural reference to indicate Nara entered Arjuna. Since, being Krishna's friend, Arjuna was more complete than Nara, as understood from Krishna's words to Arjuna, stated above. Oh, scholarly devotees, I hope you can follow. And if you can't follow, don't worry about it. Continuing, same Krishna Sandarbha, text 29. Here's a reference from Kunti's prayers, Canto 10, Chapter 8. In conclusion, therefore, O Nanda Maharaj, is this right? Canto 10, Chapter 8. In conclusion, therefore, O Nanda Maharaj, this child of yours is as good as Nārāyaṇa by his qualities. Opulence, fame, and influence. You should protect this child very carefully. So this is before Kunti's prayers, but it's in that chapter. The normal meaning is, quote, your son is similar to Nārāyaṇa in qualities. However, using the Prabhasa Sutra, that is, Ete Changsa Kalapungsam, the meaning should be, your son is he whom Nārāyaṇa is similar, and thus the lesser. Now, all what we just did was from Jiva Goswami as great authority, giving us explanations of verses from the Bhagavatam, helping us to understand who is Nara and Nārāyaṇa and their relationship with Krishna and Arjuna. This discussion will continue with other scriptural references, but that's what I decided to start with. Now, some of the devotees in this room may have heard a story that's fiction. And it's a popular fiction. It's so popular that I won't mention the name, but one of our ISKCON sannyasis gave a whole Bhagavatam class on fiction. As if it wasn't fiction. He didn't say, this is fiction story. But it's a popular story. And I, with help of scholarly devotees, there's no reference for this fiction story. With that preamble, here's the illustration. There was a demon named Dambodhava. And Dambodhava did austerities, and he was petitioning the sun god for eternal life. Sun god said, sorry, Charlie, no eternal life. Then Dambodhava, a demon, said, then here's my request. I would like 1,000 coats of armor, and if for someone to remove any one of the 1,000 coats of armor, they will have to undergo austerity for 1,000 years. And then after that, we have a battle, and they will be defeated, but I'll lose one of those coats of armor, leaving 999 coats of armor, and they'll die. It was like Hiranyakashipu asking for eternality. And the sun god said yes. Then Nārāyaṇa, he was harassing everybody. So the demigods approached Nārāyaṇa, help. So they did battle with, it's a fiction story. And I won't even finish the fiction story. But 999 coats of armor, and when one was doing battle with Dambodhava, the other one was observing, and then when they died, when they defeated Dambodhava and the one's coat of armor was removed, they died. And then the one who wasn't dead revived the other one, they came back to life, and then it came down to 999 coats of armor were left and one coat of armor. So then Dambodhava went back to the sun god saying, help. And the sun god gave his benediction, you can take birth as Karna. It's a popular story. So who was Karna before he was Karna is answered by a fiction story. Sorry to say it, but when you hear something just like the discussion yesterday, I heard, really? Ask the person who says something, politely and not confrontationally, but where's the source for that, please? And if there isn't Shruti, Smriti, Puranadi, Panch, so if there isn't sources, utpat as a disturbance. So I just disturbed your mind by telling a story that doesn't, it's fiction. Popular fiction. In a recorded, because I listened to the recorded Bhagavatam class by this very prominent sannyasi, and he tells it like it's, fact, but it's fiction. Be careful. This is the source of this. You see at the bottom, Krishna Dharma. His language is just readable. The content is authentic. Now, pardon me. Many of you know that Hridayananda Maharaj made a project some time ago to translate a readable version of Mahabharata, and he stopped. Correct? Some of you may not know. He stopped, and why did he stop? Because he found there's too much discrepancy in manuscripts, Sanskrit manuscript, different Sanskrit manuscripts, and too much discrepancy, not between this one says this and that one says that, but what any one of them says and what other prominent, acknowledged, intact scriptures say. So he stopped. And he references, because I spent some time with him on this, in person, Madhvacharya. You all know who is Madhvacharya. Anyone here not know who is Madhvacharya? Sometimes there's new people. So Madhvacharya was a collector of scriptures, one of the things that he did. And his he wrote a Mahabharata Tatparya Nirnayas, which is a commentary on selections from, not the entire Mahabharata, because he writes that Mahabharata is corrupt. There's some parts of it not, but there's enough of it that's corrupt, and so, will the real Mahabharata please stand up? There's no such thing. According to Madhvacharya. So, based upon that, that's Sri Dayananda Maharaj's flashcard. He holds it up and says, even Madhvacharya says, and it's his experience because he's a Sanskrit PhD. He knows his stuff, and there's discrepancies without going into. Could you give some examples, Maharaj? No. There's discrepancies, but there are some portions that Madhvacharya did comment on in this book. And so those are, at least we can accept through his authority that they're proper. And then there's others he didn't comment on and they're questionable. So here's Mahabharata retold, Krishna Dharma, and it's, pretty simple. I put it here because here's this Dambodbhava reference that is in Mahabharata, but it's different than that's who Karna was in his previous life. And that's why he was born with one coat of armor. The fiction story. King Dambodbhava possessed incomparable power, but had become excessively proud and arrogant. He searched continuously for opponents to defeat in battle. One day, he heard that the two rishis, Nara and Nārāyaṇa, were the most powerful men on earth. He went at once to Gandhamadana, where they were practicing asceticism, and challenged them. Although they declined, the king insisted. Finally, Nara, that's Arjuna, said, "Fight then, if you must, O Kshatriya. Bring your entire army and all your weapons. I will soon destroy your thirst for war." The king attacked the rishi, Nara, with all his power. Nara pulled up a handful of grass and, imbuing it with mystic power, hurled it at the king and his army. The grass transformed into razor-sharp steel shafts that sliced off the ears and noses of all the soldiers. Battle scene. So many shafts rained down upon them that they were unable to move. Dambodbhava fell at Nara's feet and begged for mercy. The rishi forgave him his insolence and instructed him to never again insult someone without first establishing his opponent's power. Now, that's Krishna Dharma in a version that he's narrating, and the reason for bringing this is it's something that, at least it seems to, there's some scriptural reference, at least, Krishna Dharma's rendering of retelling of the Mahabharata, but it's very different than that's who Karna was. Okay? Next. There's 7 topics that we'll be covering. Here's number 2. You see in the painting, there's Nārāyaṇa, Rishi, and before them is Cupid. And so the scene was, Cupid was sent by Indra to distract Nārāyaṇa, really, and disrupt their austerities, because Indra got the heebie-jeebies. Maybe he wants to take over my kingdom, and so he sent Cupid to distract them. King Indra became fearful, thinking that Nārāyaṇa Rishi would become very powerful by his, singular, severe penances and seize Indra's heavenly kingdom. Uh-oh. So he sent Cupid. Indra sent Cupid to incite Nārāyaṇa to become lusty. The primeval Lord, singular, understanding the offense committed by Indra, did not become proud. Instead, he spoke laughingly to Cupid and his followers, who trembled before him. Do not fear, O mighty Madana, O wind god and wives of the demigods. Rather, please accept these gifts I am offering you and kindly sanctify my ashram by your presence. Very genteel, knowing that what was going on in the background. Similar text, Sri Nārāyaṇa could immediately understand the foolishness of Indra, and thus he was amused by the whole situation. Cupid and the heavenly women, understanding their great offense, were trembling, expecting to get cursed. But the Lord, exhibiting most sublime saintly behavior, reassured them by saying, Ma, don't worry, and actually offered them nice prasadam and articles of worship. When they realized their big mistake, the fear of the demigods was taken away. They bowed their heads with shame, and then they offered prayers. So here's some of their prayers. Our dear Lord, you are always transcendental, beyond the reach of illusion, and therefore you are forever changeless. You know, this is standard sounding prayers, but here's a series. So it's from Canto 11, Chapter 4. On the left, that's demigods, and on the right, Nārāyaṇa. Your causeless compassion toward us, despite our great offense, is not at all unusual in you, since innumerable great sages who are self-satisfied and free from anger and false pride bow down humbly at your lotus feet. The demigods may place obstacles on the path of those who worship you to transcend the temporary abodes of the demigods and reach your supreme abode. You know, maybe envious and interfere. Those who offer the demigods their assigned shares of sacrificial performances encounter no such obstacles. Interesting graphics here. But because you are the direct protector of your devotee, he is able to step over the heads of whatever obstacles the demigods place before him. While the demigods were thus praising the Supreme Lord, the all-powerful Lord, singular, subtly manifested before their eyes many women who were astonishingly gorgeous, decorated with fine clothes and ornaments, and all faithfully engaged in the Lord's service. When the followers of the demigods gazed upon the fascinating, mystical beauty of the women created by Nārāyaṇa Rishi and smelled the fragrance of their bodies, the minds of these followers became bewildered. Indeed, upon seeing the beauty and magnificence of such women, the representatives of the demigods were completely diminished in their own opulences. The Supreme Lord of Lords then smiled slightly and told the representatives of heaven who were bowing down before him, please choose one of these women, whomever you find suitable for you. She will become the ornament of the heavenly planets. Phew. Vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the servants of the demigod selected Urvashi, the best of the Apsaras, placing her in front of them. Out of respect, they returned to the heavenly planets. So now we have an idea of who's the father or the source of Urvashi. The servants of the demigods reached the assembly of Indra, and thus, while all the residents of the three heavens listened, they explained to Indra the supreme power of Nārāyaṇa. When Indra heard of Nārāyaṇa Rishi and became aware of his offense, he was both frightened and astonished. And of course, the Bhagavatam goes on, but this is an episode of Indra's encounter with Narayan and his nervousness trying to disrupt their austerities. In Canto 10, Chapter 87, some of you are familiar with Canto 10, Chapter 87, Prayers by the Personified Vedas. If you want your head to spin, read Chapter 87 of Canto 10. Prayers by the Personified Vedas is extremely long and very intricate, not easy to understand. The discussion between Narada Muni and Nārāyaṇa Rishi at Bhadraka. King Parikshit asked Sukadeva Goswami how the Vedas can directly refer to the supreme absolute truth Brahman, since the Vedas deal with the material realm governed by the three modes of nature, and Brahman is completely transcendental to these modes. In reply, Sukadeva Goswami described an ancient encounter between Sri Nārāyaṇa Rishi and Narada Muni at Bhadraka. Traveling to that sacred hermitage, Narada found the Lord, singular, surrounded by exalted residents of the nearby village Kalapa. After bowing down to Nārāyaṇa Rishi and his associates, Narada submitted this same question to him. In reply, Nārāyaṇa Rishi related an account of how this very question had been discussed long ago among great sages living in Janaloka. Once these sages, feeling inquisitive about the nature of the absolute truth, chose Sanandana Kumar to speak on the subject. Disciplic succession, right? Sanandana told them how the numerous personified Vedas, appearing as the first emanations from the breathing of Lord Nārāyaṇa, recited prayers for his glorification just before the creation. Sanandana then proceeded to recite these elaborate prayers. The residents of Janaloka were perfectly satisfied upon hearing Sanandana recite the prayers of the personified Vedas, which enlightened them about the true nature of the Supreme Absolute Truth, and they honored Sanandana with their worship. Narada Muni was equally satisfied to hear this account from Sri Nārāyaṇa Rishi. Thus, Narada offered his obeisances to the Lord and then went to see his disciple, Vyasadeva, to whom he explained everything he heard. Conversation with Narada Muni and Nārāyaṇa Rishi. Here's from Canto 5, Chapter 19. So you all know that means the cosmic manifestation. So the different places within the cosmic manifestation, creation. The glories of, this is Shukadeva Goswami speaking, the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are inconceivable. He has appeared in the form of Nārāyaṇa in the land of Bharatvarsha, at the place known as Badrik Ashram, to favor his devotees by teaching them religion, knowledge, renunciation, spiritual power, sense control, and freedom from false ego. He is advanced in the opulence of spiritual assets, and he engages in executing austerity until the end of this millennium. This is the process of self-realization. In the same section, this is verse number 9 of chapter 19. Here's verse number 11. Prayers. Let me offer respectful obeisances unto Nārāyaṇa, the best of all saintly persons, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He, singular, is the most self-controlled and self-realized. He is free from false prestige, and he is the asset of persons who have no material possessions. He is the supreme spiritual master of all Paramahamsas, who are the most exalted human beings. And he is the master of the self-realized. Let me offer my repeated obeisances at his lotus feet. So there's, in the painting, there's Narada Muni with his Veena next to him, seated before Narayaṇa Rishi, getting their darshan and hearing their instructions. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the master of creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this visible cosmic manifestation, yet he is completely free from false prestige. Although to the foolish he appears to have accepted a material body like us, he is unaffected by bodily tribulations like hunger, thirst, and fatigue. Although he is the witness who sees everything, his senses are unpolluted by the objects he sees. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto that unattached, pure witness of the world, the Supreme Soul, the Personality of Godhead. That's the end of that little section. And now we have just 3 more. This is a very fascinating narration. You've all heard it before. It's nice to hear it again. So it's this chapter 89, and the situation is in Dwarka. There was a Brahmana who was married, and his wife gave birth to a son. And immediately after the son was born, the son died. Now, it says the son died, but actually the son just disappeared. The Brahmana took his dead son, doesn't say, anyway, dead son to the court of King Ugrasena and berated the king. This duplicitous, greedy enemy of Brahmanas has caused my son's death by failing to execute his duties properly. Meaning, a king that executes his duties properly protects the citizens by his execution of duties properly. Protection goes to the citizens for a king doing his duties properly, and the converse is true. The same misfortune continued to befall the Brahmana, and each time he would bring his dead infant's body to the royal court and berate the king. When the 9th son died at birth, Arjuna happened to hear the Brahmana's complaint, and he said, "My lord, I will protect your progeny, and if I fail, I will enter fire to atone for my sin." Now, Arjuna's like a strong person. So you know what happened. Arjuna went, and the Brahmana's wife was going to deliver the child, and he came and he sent this whole house made of arrows and impenetrable, and sure enough, when the son was born, the son died. As the Brahmana profusely derided Arjuna, in this case, and the other children died. In this case, the child disappeared. As the Brahmana profusely derided Arjuna, the warrior set off for the abode of Yamaraj, the king of death. But Arjuna did not find the Brahmana's son there. And even after searching throughout the 14 worlds, he could not find trace of the infinite. Having failed to protect the Brahmana's son, Arjuna was now intent on committing suicide by entering the sacred fire. But just as he was about to do so, Lord Krishna stopped him and said, "I will show where the Brahman's son. Please don't despise yourself like this." Lord Krishna then took Arjuna onto his transcendental chariot, and the two of them crossed over the 7 universal islands with their 7 oceans, passed over Loka mountain range, and entered the region of dense darkness. Since the horses could not find their way, Krishna sent his blazing Sudarshan disc ahead to pierce the gloom. Gradually, they came to the water of the causal ocean, within which they found the city of Lord Mahavishnu. There they saw the 1,000-hooded serpent, Ananta, and upon him lay Mahavishnu. So painting on the left or the right, there's Arjuna with his bow, there's Krishna standing before Nārāyaṇa on the Anantashesha bed. And notice faintly there's Narada Muni with his Veena right behind Arjuna. At least the artist depicted like that. The great Lord Mahavishnu greeted Sri Krishna and Arjuna, saying, "I brought the Brahmana's son here simply because I wanted to see the two of you. Please continue to benefit the people in general by exemplifying religious behavior in your forms, plural, of Narayan Rishi." Lord Krishna and Arjuna, who are Narayan, by the way, then took the Brahmana's sons, but it says plural sons, but it was only one because the other ones. Anyway, went back to Dwarka and returned the infants, plural, to their father. Having directly experienced the greatness of Sri Krishna, Arjuna was amazed. He concluded that only by the Lord's mercy can a living being exhibit any power or opulence, which is true. We have just 2 little sections remaining. This is a nice painting you've seen many times before. This is Uddhava at the feet of Krishna in Dwarka, knowing that Krishna is going to depart this world, and then Uddhava Gita is spoken here. And at the end, he says to Arjuna, that he doesn't say, "No, I can't take you with me." He just says, "I have some service for you. Go to Badrikashram." Sri Uddhava said to Mahatma Vidura, Canto 3, Chapter 4, "The Lord is the vanquisher of distress, of one who is surrendered unto him. Thus, he who desired to destroy his family told me previously to go to Badrikashram." To destroy his family means the Prabhas Kshetra big mess. So it was Krishna's desire, and it happened. And there's a purpose behind Krishna's desire. His pastimes were over, and he wanted to send his eternal associates back to the spiritual realm, and the demigods who had come to join him back to their demigod position. his pastimes are over. So it's past time to conclude that. This is BBT purport. While at Dwarka, Uddhava was warned to avoid the distresses which were to follow the appearance of Lord and the destruction of the Yadu dynasty. He, Uddhava, was advised to proceed to Badrik Ashram because there he could associate with the devotees of Nārāyaṇa. And in their association of devotional service, he could increase his eagerness for chanting, hearing, knowledge, and detachment. Continuing, my dear Vidura, this is Uddhava to Krishna in Vrindavan. Now I am mad for want of the pleasure of seeing him, and just to mitigate this, I am now proceeding to Badrik Ashram in the Himalayas for association, as I have been instructed by him. So the illustration is Nārāyaṇa. That's where they are, in Badrik Ashram. And here's the deity forms. There in Badrik Ashram, the personality of Godhead in his incarnation as the sages, plural, Nara and Nārāyaṇa, has been undergoing great penance, now it's singular, has been undergoing great penance since time immemorial for the welfare of all amiable living entities. And that's the end of this section, and here's the remaining section, number 7. This is Markandeya Rishi with folded palms before Narayan Rishi, and the entire Canto 12, Chapter 8 is on this topic. So this is a long section, but it's worth spending some time with. Here's the genealogical table again. Over on the left, there's Markandeya, and who are his predecessors. And on the right, there's Narayan and their predecessors. And the source of all is Lord Brahma. And the little note below Markandeya's name is he worshipped the Supreme Lord for 6 manvantaras. That's a long time to do anything. To outlive Manu? How long does Manu live? He lives a long time. Time moves in cycles. It's a good starting point. And there's summer, fall, winter, spring. There's a cycle of time, 1 year. And then another year, and then another year, and the same summer, fall, winter, spring. Little variety, but same pattern. So as there's summer, fall, winter, spring, there's 4 yugas. And the 4 yugas cycle again around and around because different cycle of time. And 71 of those yuga cycles makes 1 Manu, and times 6. So Markandeya Rishi lived a long time. There's certain living entities, they're called Chiran Jivas, and they live for a very long time. Markandeya is one. So here's some nice graphics. Desiring to bestow his mercy upon the saintly Markandeya, who had perfectly fixed his mind in self-realization through penance, Vedic study, and observance of regular principles, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, singular, personally appeared before the sage in the forms plural, of Nara and Nārāyaṇa. One of them was of a whitish complexion, and the other blackish. And they both had 4 arms. Their eyes resembled the petals of blooming lotuses, and they were They wore garments of black deerskin and bark, very fashionable, along with 3-stranded sacred thread. In their hands, which were most purifying, they carried the mendicant's water pot, straight bamboo staff, and lotus seed prayer beads, as well as the all-purifying Vedas in the symbolic form of bundles of dharma grass. Their bearing was tall, and their yellow effulgence the color of radiant lightning, appearing as austerity personified. They were being worshipped by the foremost demigods. So there's Markandeya Rishi bowing before them. These two, plural, sages, Nara and Nārāyaṇa, were the direct personal forms of the Supreme Lord. When Markandeya Rishi saw them, he immediately stood up and then with great respect offered obeisances, falling flat on the ground like a stick. The ecstasy of seeing them completely satisfied Markandeya's body, mind, and senses, and caused the hairs on his body to stand on end and his eyes to fill with tears. Overwhelmed, Markandeya found it difficult to look at them. Whoever did the graphics, they did a nice job. Standing with his hands folded in supplication and his head bowed in humility, Markandeya felt such eagerness that he imagined he was embracing the two lords. In a voice choked with ecstasy, he repeatedly said, "I offer you my humble obeisances." And then his obeisances. He gave them sitting places and washed their feet. And then he worshipped them with presentations of arghya, sandalwood pulp, fragrant oils, incense, and flower garlands. Looks like plates of prasadam too. Somebody really likes this setting, so there's offerings. Markandeya Rishi once again bowed down at the lotus feet of the two most worshipable sages who are sitting at ease, ready to bestow all mercy upon him. He then addressed them as follows. So here's his prayers. "Oh, Almighty Lord, how can I possibly describe you? You awaken the vital air which then impels the mind, senses, and power of speech to act. This is true for all ordinary conditioned souls and even for great demigods like Brahma and Shiva. So, it is certainly true for me. Nevertheless, you become the intimate friend of those who worship you. Oh, Supreme Personality of Godhead, these two personal forms of yours have appeared to bestow the ultimate benefit for the three worlds, the cessation of material misery and the conquest of death. My Lord, although you create this universe and then assume many transcendental forms to protect it, you also swallow it up, just like a spider, in case you wondered what's the spider doing in this image. Just like a spider who spins and later withdraws its web. So the manifestation is his energy. So, yeah, here's 9 more prayers, and I'm not going to cover the other 9 more prayers, but they're nice prayers. Satisfied by the prayers Sri Markandeya had offered, the Supreme Lord, singular, told him to ask for a benediction. And the sage said, Very strange request. He wanted to see the Lord's illusory energy. We'll give him, we give him our vision of the illusory energy, and he'll be satisfied, right? The Supreme Lord, Sri Hari, present before Markandeya in the form of Nārāyaṇa, replied, "So be it," and then left for Badrik Ashram. One day, Sri Markandeya was offering his evening prayers. The water of devastation suddenly flooded the three worlds. With great difficulty, Markandeya moved about all alone in this water for a long time till he came to a banyan tree. Lying upon a leaf of that tree was an infant boy glowing with a charming effulgence. As Markandeya moved towards the leaf, he was pulled by the boy's inhalation, and like a mosquito was drawn within his body. What's going to happen next? Inside the boy's body, Markandeya was amazed to see the entire universe just as it had been before the annihilation. After a moment, the sage was carried out by the force of the child's exhalation and hurled back into the ocean of annihilation. Then, seeing that child on the leaf was actually Sri Hari, the transcendental Lord situated within his own heart, Sri Markandeya tried to embrace him. But at that moment, Lord Hari, the master of all mystic power, disappeared. Poof. The waters of annihilation disappeared as well, and Sri Markandeya found himself in his own ashram, just as before. The end. At least the end of this class, not the end of everything. So Nārāyaṇa, back to that initial verse, Nārayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottaram devim saraswatim vyasam. There's the transcendental world is beyond our senses, our gaze of inspection. We can't see, we can't with our minds know, but through transcendental sound vibration, one can make that connection. That's our method. And by the kindness of the disciplic succession, particularly our founder Acharya, we have access to what's beyond our senses to know, beyond the mind to figure it out. Beyond the beyond. And it doesn't, because it's beyond doesn't mean it's fiction. There's certainly stuff that's fiction. But that doesn't mean because we can't understand it or it's beyond even our imagination. Who could imagine a story like this? Oh boy. It's not fiction. But we can understand about transcendence through sound. It's like it's like so many things. With higher education, it's the starting point is sound. You have to have a good teacher and good teaching, and things that can't be understood can be understood. Perhaps at least the potential is there. What to speak of transcendental things? And it's not like you build a staircase of empiric knowledge and you eventually get to the spiritual world, then you can understand the spiritual world through empiric knowledge. It's not like that. Not like that. Then maybe it doesn't exist. That's a doubtful mindset. Maybe it doesn't exist. Then again, maybe it does exist. Then sankalpa vikalpa from the mind platform. That's not going to get you there. It's hearing. from the right source. So it's very important to know the source. And then carefully examine, not blindly accept, but carefully hear from the right source or sources. And then you can know. You can know that which is otherwise unknowable. Pretty amazing. And here we are, part 13 of 14 classes. Let's see if there's some discussion. Gosh, it's 10 after 9. What time are we supposed to end? 10 minutes ago. Yes? What to do? Huh? You're giving me a green light. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the class. I have a comment, but please clarify my comprehension. So most of the slides that I've seen from for Nara Rishis, they talked about bringing peace to the souls, penances, self-realization. So, and they are here until the end of the millennium. But we have so many atrocities happening around the world.
Yes.
How, and it's Kali Yuga, I understand we are going through a process towards the end. So how do we comprehend or relate?
How do we do what?
Comprehend and relate our relationship with the Nārāyaṇa Rishis, what they are doing for us.
Well, it's not doing for us. We should do for them.
So
I know you know that, but I'm commenting on the language. Time is cyclical. Wait a while, like a long while, and the cycle will go back up again. And then it'll start to go down again, and it keeps going in cycles, because time moves in cycles. They're giving, so what they're doing for us is they're setting an example and giving transcendental knowledge to those who want transcendental knowledge beyond the cycles of time. Is there such a thing? Oh, yes. And where to get it? Nārāyaṇa and other personalities, those 4 that were mentioned at the very beginning of Canto 1, Chapter 2, verse number 4. Nārayanam namaskrityam, and then expansions of those personalities, empowered by those personalities. But, the list can be a long list, but it's listing 4. And that's what they're doing for us. They're giving us transcendental knowledge and setting an example by foregoing temptation of the senses and objects of the senses. It doesn't have to be extreme, but just it's a principle. So let's say the same thing. Supposing one's a householder, does that mean they're not eligible? No. So there's procedures or there's principles for householders that have objects of senses and how to interact with those objects of the senses with detachment. And by that method becoming purified and perfect. So that's what they're doing for us. Anyone else? Yeah.
Thank you for sharing about and pointing out sometimes plural, sometimes singular, Nārāyaṇa. Yes.
It was pointed, it was purposeful.
Yes, and definitely it has bewildered. From this sloka, it is very clear, as you pointed out in the beginning, Nārāyaṇa is separate here and Nara is separate. So, if someone asks me who is Nārāyaṇa Rishi, so it's singular. My understanding is everywhere it is singular, except in few places it is said one is fair color, one is dark color. So I'm
The two forms, but Radha Krishna, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
exactly.
So you've got it already.
So
It's not easy to understand for persons that have a binary processor.
right.
It's either 1 or a 0. It can't be a 1 and a 0.
But when we try to understand when he was born from Murti, one form was born, right?
Was it twins or was it one child?
Yeah, that's my question. I thought
I know that's what your question is.
Yes.
And I'm answering, but with a question.
Yeah. Yes.
No, it's two forms. So one can say twins.
Oh, okay.
But then, what does that mean? How do you have twins and it's singular? It's one entity with two forms. The statement that Prabhupada made to Saradiya, this concept is something that can't be understood as long as one is a conditioned soul. So I can, we can go back and forth, and the conclusion is we won't understand it, fully understand it, or truly understand it, until we become free from the material conception of life. And what do we do for the meanwhile? Hear and try to understand, knowing that we won't be able to enter into the fullness of the message or the understanding, the mystery.
Is there a mention that he is Shakti Avash avatar like Prithu Maharaj?
Is there a reference that says what?
Is he Shakti Avash avatar like Prithu Maharaj is also incarnation?
No. I don't, I'm saying quickly. To my knowledge, no.
Thank you.
But Narayan is not a Shaktivesh avatar. Narayan Rishi is not a Shaktivesh avatar. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thanks for your association. Just a minor observation, if you see some of the graphics, they have applied, the Tripundra on Krishna and Arjuna.
Yeah.
It's a case of cultural appropriation.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Because you know how to modify. It's just, the fellow, I didn't do the artwork, somebody did the artwork and they did what they did and Haribol. It's not a 0, but it's not a 10 either. Krishna Kripa all the way in the back.
Thank you so much for this seminar that you're doing. I was listening at home online, so I did hear all of it. So you brought up in reference to Arjuna and Kunti being in the material world, and Prabhupada, I think you quoted Prabhupada as saying that yes, they are always in the material world, they're not in Goloka Vrindavan. A thought came to me that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Krishnadas Kaviraj is explaining the eternal pastimes of Krishna, he explains that his pastimes go on sequentially from planet to planet to planet.
Yes, correct.
So would that shed light on how Arjuna and Kunti are always here?
But to make it even more mysterious,
it does that.
Simultaneously, one jiva can be in different places at the same time, no problema.
Krishna is tricky.
Well, I mean, it doesn't stand to reason, please. My mind can't get around that one. But it happens. There's lots of examples of that, actually. When you start to scratch the surface a little bit, simultaneously. A jiva is in multiple places. One jiva simultaneously in multiple places. It's not super soul that's everywhere. It's a jiva, different, different category, different tattva, jiva tattva. Anyway, perfected souls have facility and capacity, and it's just like whatever Krishna wants. We're not there. We're not like whatever Krishna wants. Okay. That's it. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. There is a